Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. This week we have Niall Higgins from Sligo, and Niall, you were saying beforehand that you have a very simple suckler system, but I think they are the hardest systems perhaps to get right. So tell us first a little bit about it.
I suppose we're kind of in South Sligo, so I'd be about halfway between Sligo town and Carrick and Shannon, so I'm very much South Sligo. So I suppose we're a suckler farm. We're kind of split we're running about 25 suckler cows in total. About 15 of them be calving in the spring and the rest then in the autumn. I suppose we just done it that way, I suppose, to split up the workload on the farm. I'm in partnership with my father and both of us work off farm, so it just kind of breaks up the workload, and we find it works well. So it's mostly Limousin and Angus cattle, and then we just run an Angus stock bull, so we find it work well for us.
So you have a Limousin type of cow and then an Angus stock bull just for ease of calving. Is that the idea?
Yeah, so we kind of changed to an Angus bull when we went organic. I suppose traditionally it would have been Limousins or Shirleys, but Angus tend to suit organics. They're less maintenance, they're hardier, and we find they just work well. No dispudding and very low work with them.
So you have the Angus there just for polled calves, so you don't have to do any dehorning. And it's just handy, isn't it? Like we had a Hereford stock bull last year who was polled, and it's one less job, which is just key when you have a suckler system and you're working off farm as well. So do you have any other kind of handy tips for people when it comes to suckler farming?
No, not a whole pile, to be honest, yeah. No, it's a very basic system. I suppose there's a handful of sheep running around the spot as well. There's about approximately 20 kind of Suffolk ewes as well.
Just for self-torture, is that?
Yeah, just in case we didn't have enough, and try and torture ourselves as much as we can. Running ewes, and we lamb them kind of in around from Paddy's Day on, and we'll just sell them then once they're fit. In fairness, it's been an exceptional year for sheep. We'll definitely not complain about sheep, and as well as cattle are going good at the minute too, so we'll not complain too much at the minute.
And in terms of where you send do you finish your own lambs and sell them yourself?
No, so we just bring them to the ordinary mart, and then in terms of the cattle, they all go through Drumshanbo Organic Mart, because I suppose we're very close. We have a good selection of organic marts up in the northwest. There's Roscommon, Elphin and Drumshanbo as well isn't too far from us. So we have a good pick up here in the northwest.
And what stage are you selling your weanlings?
So from kind of weanlings to yearlings, so generally kind of hitting them in the springtime, kind of February, March time. I suppose we're trying to hit when prices are at its best. But yeah, they all go through Drumshanbo Mart there, and we're very happy with it.
In terms then of land management, because you mentioned that you're split calving between the spring and the autumn, and I don't want to pigeonhole Sligo land and get any complaints or anything like that, but I'd imagine it's a little bit more tricky at times on wetter ground to manage. So how do you manage it?
So look, we're farming roughly kind of the 50 hectare mark. The farm is fragmented. We do have 3 blocks. That's why we kind of autumn calving, so it's handy to have everything everything comes to the home farm for calving, and then autumn calvers kind of go to the out farms during the summer because we don't need to pass much either of them. But yeah, I suppose land management, look, it is Sligo at the end of the day. Yeah, land wouldn't be as good as other parts of the country, but we wouldn't be as intensively stocked is be a big thing, especially in organics. You wouldn't just expect to carry the same stocking rate, which is one thing we did do when we went into organics. We did reduce our stocking rate just to ease our way into it, just to kind of find what worked best for us. I suppose we were going to do it intentionally, and then unfortunately, the year we entered organics in 2021, we got hit with TB, so our herd reduced rapidly for us. So we kind of had a surplus of grass, so we had surplus of silage. So I suppose we had no choice when we were reducing our numbers, but it was good. Yeah, we're kind of trying to just find a happy medium and see what works best. So the majority of them be housed. There will be a couple of the lighter weanlings kind of outwintered in just the drier spots. I suppose we were very lucky in terms of organics. We didn't really have any much modifications to do. We had plenty of solid sheds. We have a slatted shed with a solid layback. So in terms of sheds, we had very little changing to do. So we're very lucky that way. The majority of them will be housed over the winter period, all right.
And what are you using for bedding? Are you using straw or are you using rushes from your own farm?
Straw, mostly straw. Again, look, yeah, we do have rushes, so we'd use a small bit of that, but mostly straw. As I said, we had plenty of straw sheds or solid sheds anyway, so we were kind of used to doing straw bedding anyway, so it wasn't much different.
Ever since I became organic anyway, I'm finding I'm much more on it in terms of technical stuff of, soil tests and silage tests. What about you? Are you doing any kind of testing on your farm?
No, 'cause I suppose, look, I'm in partnership with my father. He'd be more traditional. He wouldn't pass much heed of that, in fairness, no. So we do have plenty of disputes about stuff like that, but no,
Yeah.
no, we never really done much testing and silage and stuff. As I say, look, it's very simple and basic. We do both work off farm, so I suppose we're not fully reliant on the farm for a week's wage.
And would you be spreading any lime? Would you be checking your pH? Would you be sowing clover or doing anything like that?
But yeah, we kind of, farmyard manure and slurry. We do have our own farmyard manure spreader, so we kind of work away with that ourselves, and we just get a contractor into the slurry. But we just kind of work with what we produce on farm.
See, so you are doing something. You have your own manure spreader. I knew there had to be something you were doing.
Yeah, so we do have plenty of our own machinery, I suppose, in fairness, yeah. We had most of it before we went organic anyway, so it was always there, so it's handy just to work when the weather suits. You're not relying on the contractors.
And then in terms of the cows as well, are you doing any feeding or are you giving them a bolus at a certain time of year?
No, again, very little. I suppose that's when you went organic, you kind of start working with your veg, do up your health plan and that, and he kind of said just trial and error. I suppose we would have traditionally, but no, not in recent years. And the cattle don't need anything. They're not lacking anything. They're healthy. You just kind of realise how much time and money you were wasting probably before this. You know, you would have had a set routine dosing pattern, which you generally didn't actually need, but you just done it because you thought so. We take fecal samples and stuff like that and work off that. Again, hasn't really been much coming back, so I suppose we're lucky in terms of that.
There's been, I guess, a big influx of farmers converting to organic recently. When did you guys become organic and why as well? Did you want to make the move?
We would have went into it in 2021, so just kind of over the 3 years of it done. What kind of brought us into it, as I was saying, we've a fragmented farm, but it was a neighbouring farm and an out farm was holding a farm walk. And we just went to it, and it was actually an organic farm walk. We never realised he was organic until he held the walk, and we just went to it to support him, and that kind of opened our eyes as to, we never knew he was organic, and that kind of just sparked us to look into it and see what all organic is about. Because I suppose we weren't too far off it anyways, and we just, I suppose the more you look into it, and I suppose it just made sense to kind of sign up for it. And look, it's a 5-year scheme, so I suppose you can see what you want after that, but no, we'll definitely be staying in it for the long picture.
The weed management, or I guess perceived lack even of weed management in organics, can scare people off. I mean, we do a lot of topping here on our own land. What about you guys? Do you top for docks, or how do you manage that?
We'd probably try and top them, so we'd have kind of fields divided into paddocks. I suppose we try and top them after every grazing. Just, I suppose, rushes would be the big thing up in the northwest. So we try to top them as often as we can, just to keep them under control.
And do you bale your
paddocks and stuff would help.
Yeah.
No, we wouldn't bale them, to be honest. No, I suppose we try to use the straw. We try to stay away from it.
Yeah.
Just with, I suppose, the harsh spring this year, and I suppose tillage farmers down the south mightn't have just got everything sowed as early. We probably will do a bit of it this year, just in case straw is very hard to get, just as a precautionary measure.
And then baling rushes is what we're talking about. Sorry, I should have clarified that. You and I were on autopilot. We knew what we were talking about.
Yeah.
If anyone else is wondering, we're talking about baling rushes. Yeah.
But no, we try to stay away from it if we can. We prefer to use the straw, but we probably will do a bit of it this year, just as a precautionary measure.
And since you're a suckler farmer as well, I imagine that you're in SCEP, or the Suckler Carbon Efficiency Programme as well. How are you finding that?
Because I suppose we would have been in the BDGP before it anyways, so it's more or less a roll on from that. I suppose in terms of stairs, we're using a 5-star bull, and most of the cows are 5-star anyways, so it's not much different to us. And I suppose you just have to weigh them once a year. So it's, I suppose we're kind of already in the scheme previous to it, so it's not much different to us.
Yes, so for anyone who's not familiar with SCEP, it's based on a star system. So a little bit like if you were going to a 5-star hotel, it's obviously better than, say, a 1-star hotel. So you're looking for 5-star cows. So you, I guess, have been breeding your own replacement heifers and keeping the highest starred ones for yourself.
Yeah, and again, look, we would go to the local marts, and even the organic trading hub has taken off well, so we would kind of keep an eye out on that. But yeah, we try to breed most of our own if we can. So
are you using the organic trading hub? How are you finding it?
I suppose we haven't sold on it, but we would have bought stock off it, we have bought 2 in-calf cows off it already this year, yes. We would be keeping an eye on it, but we're kind of at our limit in terms of stock numbers at the minute, just for now.
You mentioned very sadly that you went down with TB a few years ago. What's TB like in the area? Is it still a problem?
That was just kind of a spike. So in fairness, no, there hasn't been any of it kind of since. We were just unlucky to go down. And again, no, there's been no one really in our area since. It was just very unfortunate at the time, to be honest.
And then in terms of actually making the switch to organics, there's a lot of, I guess, people get tied up in knots thinking that there's tons of paperwork involved. How have you found the paperwork? How have you managed it?
Yeah, I suppose, look, a lot of people probably think it's a lot worse than it is. Yeah, because a lot of people say you can't do this and you can't do that. Like, by all means, you still can treat any sick animals. You just have to get your vet script or just justification for it. And the housing will be a big thing, yeah. So just make sure you have enough solid area. So they just can't be confined to slats for the winter period. Just kind of do your homework before you come into it. Make sure you know everything. But by all means, it's a very friendly scheme. Even like you just have your inspection once every 12 months and do a small bit of record keeping. It's nothing too strenuous, in fairness.
I mean, that's it. It's essentially just the same paperwork, even as for your Board BIA. You know, you can give your organic paperwork to your Board BIA inspector as well. And usually they're delighted because the paperwork's so well laid out.
Yeah, it's well kept. Yeah, so they do accept your the organic book as well. Yeah, so a lot of people will be in Board BIA, so it's not much different to keep the organic records.
And then I think the biggest old wives' tale that I hear a lot is that you cannot give antibiotics to cows or animals when you're in organics. I mean, as if you'd let an animal suffer or stay sick. I mean, you can of course use antibiotics. It's just double the withdrawal period.
Animal welfare is kind of the priority. They just don't want people doing routine dosing and routine vaccination, or you can still routine vaccinate, all right, once you have it in your health plan.
So the paperwork side of it you find simple enough?
Yeah, again, it's very basic. Like even my father was well able to do it, but I suppose we're in partnership now, so I get all the paperwork jobs.
Yeah, that's it. It was the same here. That, you know, farming with my grandmother. That they'll let you in, but only if you do the paperwork.
Yeah, paperwork has to be done by me anyway. So yeah.
Well, Niall, thank you very much for that. And for everyone listening, you've been listening to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. For more on organics, you can go to www.irishorganicassociation.ie. And also, if you want to find more podcasts, which hopefully you do, you can search for Organic Matters on Spotify or SoundCloud or your listening platform of choice. But for me, Hannah Quinn Mulligan, thank you very much. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks.